Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of Talking Brazil Ball, the podcast where we talk about everything and anything to do with Brazilian football. I'm James Brook, your host, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. George Brook. George, how are you doing what are we on now? This evening, I'm just about into. It's still light outside. It's quite nice, but how are you doing anyway?
Yeah, all right, James. Thank you. Good to see you again for talking Brazil ball, and yeah, doing okay. Like you said, a bit lighter outside. I think the clocks are changing, going forward, aren't they, on Sunday? So Easter, isn't it, James? Will you be having any eggs just for starters?
Well, for starters, I don't know, but certainly for dessert,
Oh well, there you go. Absolutely, yeah, I'm sure you'll have quite a number, perhaps.
yeah, well, we'll see what happens, won't we? I don't tend to go for
Yes.
the eggs so much these days, but it's just a bit looks like a big box, but you just end up getting all packaging in it, really. Then a tiny little egg in the middle, and it's not really worth it, is it? In the end.
Yeah, it's a bit poor now, isn't it? Really, the price goes higher, the chocolate gets small, the eggs get smaller. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a little bit of a sort of a non-event, really, isn't it? But there's plenty of football to keep us entertained, anyway, isn't there? Over the Easter weekend, that is for sure.
There certainly is. There certainly is. Well, there isn't. Well, there might be some Brazilian football actually in the regional kind of tournaments, but we're trying to focus on kind of Serie A, the Brasileirão, this for our kind of podcast and focus on that really. So there isn't any football on Easter weekend, but we are getting closer to the start of the Serie A season. So it is about 3 weeks away now, are we? We are about 14th. We're looking at 13th, isn't
Something
it?
like that. Yeah, something like that, James. Yeah, it's not too far away now, not at all.
No. So anybody who's been listening will know that we've done a roundup of the teams that we're going to be competing in the Serie A season this year. So we've completed that last week. So if you want to go back and listen to the roundup of any teams and just familiarise yourself with those, we had good fun doing that. But now it's kind of into the real kind of stuff. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to do a first edition of a season preview. So to instead of doing a full season preview all in one go, we thought we'd kind of break that down too, and look at kind of portions of teams individually or as a kind of a group. So, George, do you want to introduce our first edition of our 2024 Talking Brazil Ball Serie A preview? So, do you want to just go through who we're looking at today?
Yeah, absolutely, James. It'd be a pleasure of mine. So, what we're doing, aren't we? We split it in. We're looking at four teams, sort of title challengers today. So, we're splitting it into four teams. You've got two. You've looked at two. I've looked at two. And it's the teams that we think. Oh, it was actually the top four in Serie A last season, wasn't it? So, the teams that we think might challenge. So, basically, you've looked at Palmeiras and Gremio, and I've looked at Flamengo and, of course, Atletico MG Gallo. So that's what we're doing, looking at like just overviews basically of the teams, transfers, a manager, quick look at the manager of the teams, key players, one to watch as well, one player that we think, or maybe one or two that we think will do well, for the viewers and listeners to look out for, and also then will be a little reason why we think that this team might win the title. So that's what we're doing, isn't it, today? Looking forward to it, James. Should be a good show.
Yeah, that's well said, well rounded up. And for those who are watching on YouTube, you might see that we do have our Brazil shirts on today. So yours is a bit of a controversial one in some ways, isn't it, George? I mean, you're covering today Flamengo and Gallo, and you were initially a Flamengo fan, but you've turned your back on them and gone with Gallo, haven't you? But you do have your Flamengo shirt on still. It's good to see. So you haven't totally turned your back on the red and blacks.
No, absolutely not. I've got my Flamengo shirt on. Like you said, I did initially start with Flamengo as my team. I've gone to Gallo. A little bit controversial as well because there is a bit of a rivalry between the two sides. But hey, look, I'm a Brazilian football fan. I do enjoy the shirts, so it shouldn't matter too much. I've noticed actually that Gallo have put out their shirt for the season yesterday. Nice traditional black and white, Newcastle-esque. So looks pretty tidy. So maybe that's one to put on my birthday list, isn't it? Or whatever. So it's still a way off, isn't it? But who knows?
Certainly, you'll be scouring DH Gate for one of those, won't you? Probably.
Potentially. Well, they're so expensive, aren't they, James? The full kit, you know what I mean? You're talking hundreds of pounds, aren't you? Really? Well, if you're wanting the full kit or whatever. But yeah, it's a smart one. This one, incidentally, is very smart as well. And you've got your Gremio shirt on, haven't you, as well? So slightly
Correct.
more placid, perhaps.
Well, perhaps it's a nice shirt, nice Umbro number, nice blue and black and white, very kind of distinctive. So yeah, not my team as it turns out, but like you say, we're Brazilian football fans. We're fans of the shirts. So we're going to try and add to our collection as we kind of go through. But yeah, today I'm repping one of the teams who I am going to talk about a little bit later on, Gremio. But first, just to kick off, I thought we'd talk about the team who in my book are probably the favourites going into the season. I don't know if that's kind of the same with the bookies. But the first club we're going to look at, and I'm going to put their case forward, is Palmeiras. So as everybody who's listening will probably know, Palmeiras were the champions last year, and they were actually also the champions the year before. So 2022 and 23 were both Palmeiras' year. So they are kind of perennial winners. They're one of the biggest clubs in Brazil, as we know, as we've looked at, a huge club from Sao Paulo. So their manager is a guy as well who's been there for quite some time in Brazilian football terms anyway. So it's a Portuguese chap called Abel Ferreira, and he is 45 years old, so still relatively young for a manager. It's his third senior job in management. He was Braga manager previously, and he was also PAOK manager in Greece. So he's had a couple of stints. He's been at Palmeiras since, I think, October 2020. So like I say, in Brazilian standards, that's 3.5 years now. That's a relatively long time. And the reason for that is because he's been a great success, basically. He's won, like we say, those last 2 Serie A titles. He's won a Copa do Brasil. And he's also impressively won 2 back-to-back Copa Libertadores with Palmeiras in 2020 and 2021. So 2 Serie A titles, 2 Copa Libertadores titles, a Copa do Brasil. What more could you ask for, really?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, he's serial winner, isn't he? And like you said, James, been there for a while. So you know that, like you said, in Brazilian terms, as we've learned, the managers go round and round and round so quickly. To be there for 3.5 years, he's obviously doing something right. He obviously is. They've won the title twice on the bounce. Can they do it a third time, though, do you think? Well, you know, to me, there looks like stronger outfits out there, but
well, that's interesting. We'll come on to those, but yeah, it's 3 in a row would be a huge feat, obviously. But if anybody can do it, perhaps it is Abel Ferreira. He was one of only 3 non-South American coaches to win the Copa Libertadores, so he really is kind of standing out there as a European manager in South America, in Brazil. So obviously, it's a similar culture, similar language, but he's translated that from Braga. He was a player with Sporting, so he did have experience, a lot of experience. He was a Portuguese international, I think, as well. So, he's not new into the game. He's been around a long time. So he's the manager. He's the guy who's going to be trying to win 3 in a row. And the team he's got to do it with, like you say, there's perhaps stronger outfits on paper, but, this is a cohesive group who've been together for a number of years. They've added to the squad ever so slightly this season, perhaps not as much as other teams that we might look at. They added a chap called Bruno Rodrigues from who was on loan at Cruzeiro from Tombense, which I think is a 2nd division or 3rd division team even, but he's been at Cruzeiro in the Serie A, doing relatively well. So he's come in, a winger, Bruno Rodrigues. They've brought in an Argentinian defensive midfielder who was the most expensive signing at about 5.5 million, Anibal Moreno from Racing Club in Argentina. So he's about 24, just coming to shore up the midfield, it looks like. They've also brought in a chap called Caio Paulista, who is a left back, who was from Fluminense, actually, but who was at Sao Paulo on loan last year. And they've bought a chap called Ramalho, who is another signing from the second division and from a team called Novo Horizontino. And he'll join at the end of the Paulista, which is ongoing at the moment. So he's 22-year-old attacking midfielder. Looks relatively handy, maybe someone to keep an eye on. And they've signed a chap called Lazaro, who is a winger who's come on loan from Almeria in Spain. And he's a Flamengo youth product, actually, but went out to Spain and now he's come back. So not a huge amount of tinkering with the squad. A couple of players have gone out. Arthur Guimaraes has gone to Zenit St. Petersburg. He came through the youth team. But I don't think he was a hugely kind of important player for them. Then they sold Kevin, if you might remember, to Shakhtar Donetsk. He was 21-year-old winger. But again, he wasn't necessarily massively in the first team picture. There was one or two outgoings as well. It's hard to get a grip of the transfers a little bit because they're so they're in and out. There's lots of loans. There's lots of quite strange moves. So they're the ones to kind of keep an eye on. So not too much tinkering with the squads. The key men are all still kind of there. And to me, the very key man is Rafael Veiga. So he's a 28-year-old kind of attacking midfielder across the forward line. And he's been there a little while now, I think since 2017. He spent a year on loan, I think at Bragantino, and he's been back a few years now, and he's been consistently putting up good numbers for Palmeiras. Last year alone, 18 goals, 16 assists, all competitions. That's the kind of numbers that you really want from your attacking players. And with Endrick obviously going, I think Endrick's obviously going to be a key man for them, but he's only going to be there for a few months. He's heading to Real Madrid in July, so we know he's not going to be relied upon for the full season. So he might add that bit of sprinkling towards the start of the year. But in the long run, they have to rely on the other kind of forwards, and I think Vega's the guy who has just been the go-to guy for some years now. One of the best players in the Serie A for sure. Brazil international, 6 caps. I think he's got. He scored in the Libertadores final in 2021, so he's a really he's a Palmeiras kind of legend already, and I think he's still got a gear or so to move up. So for me, if you're looking at key men, it's got to have to be Rafael Veiga. I don't know if you've looked at any others, George. There's one or two more. Ronnie, who's a striker, who I think was in English football for a little bit. Obviously, Endrick, Gabriel Menino, who's a defensive midfielder. And then Weatherton, the goalkeeper, who's, again, another stalwart, been there for years. So they've got kind of a nucleus of a squad who've been together for a long time and know what it takes to win. And although there's a couple of aging players in there, they've got the kind of capabilities, I think, with a little bit of a sprinkling of new blood and a couple of youngsters who I'll just look at as well. I think they've got enough to certainly be right up challenging again.
Yeah, well, like I said, I haven't really got too much on him. Like I said, Ronnie didn't play in England, but it is hard to keep a track of. He is quite a sort of more senior player in that squad, to be fair. But no, he didn't play. I think he's played all his career in Brazil. Played for Paranense for a bit, but he's been at Palmeiras for some time now. Look, it's a good team. Like I said, Endrick, and obviously we have to touch on Endrick scoring the winning goal on Saturday night against England. Obviously, we spoke about it last week. He will be very important to them up until July, when he moves, of course, to Madrid. Obviously, a few of his new Madrid teammates in that Brazilian team in that Brazilian squad on Saturday as well.
And the England squad.
Sorry?
And the England squad, don't forget.
Yeah, of course. Bellingham. Bellingham. We saw Bellingham, didn't we, James, after the game, laughing and joking with Vinicius and, of course, Rodrigo. So, yeah, there's, like you said, yeah, of course, rightly, there's English interest in Madrid as well now. So, yeah, look, Endrick, youngest ever player to score at Wembley Stadium. He'll be a big miss for Palmeiras, even at 17 years old. We know that Brazilian clubs like to bring on the young talents. They're not scared to throw a 16, 17-year-old into into the squad and have him as a first team player. So he'll be a big miss. But I think Palmeiras, like I said, it is, like you said, James, it is a team maybe that is it more of a team than individual quality players, which is what you want, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, you want a team that can play well together, knows each other's games. That's probably why they've done so well over the last few years, to be fair. Because you'd probably agree with as well, there are teams in this division that have better individual quality, but as a team, as a manager, he's been there and done it. Who knows? Can they make it a hat trick? It would be very intriguing to wait and see what happens with them, definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say there's there's teams with individual quality. Perhaps there are. I mean, you might have the shirt of one of them, but I don't think there's too many. I mean, but as a collective, they are strong, and you're absolutely right. They will miss Endrick. I'm sure they will. But at the same time, he was the top scorer last season in the Brasileirão with just, I think, about 11 goals or something. He wasn't hugely prolific, but that does show that they are just missing that really kind of prolific striker, and that's why I think Vega's so important, because he is a kind of a link man, really, and he can get goals and he'll set them up, and I think that's important. But anyway, Palmeiras, the youth system's amazing, and they do have players who can step into Endrick's shoes. So a couple of players who are really, really ones to watch. You talk about Brazilian talent, and these two are probably right at the forefront of it at the minute. First one, Estevão Willian. He's only 16 years old. He's a left-footed winger. He's absolutely lightning quick, skillful as you like. He's already caught an interest from, Chelsea. Surprisingly, they want every youngster who bursts on the scene, don't they, Chelsea? Yeah. But he's got a release clause of 51 million, and the suggestion seems to be that he won't be going for far off that, basically. He was recently included in the Goal Next Gen series, which is brought out kind of every year, looking at the top youngsters in the world. He ranked 21st on that. So he was pretty high for a 16-year-old who's only just really made a handful of appearances for the first team. So, Estevão Willian is one, really to keep a close eye on. And the second one from Palmeiras is Luis Guilherme, who is an 18-year-old again, was included in that Next Gen series, was actually one place higher. He was in 20th. So that was ahead of the likes of, Bellingham, Joe Bellingham, Lucas Bergvall, who's just gone to Spurs. So he's really highly rated as a young midfielder. He's already in the first team picture. I think he's made already 30-odd appearances. He's well established at Palmeiras. So my team, Liverpool, have actually been linked quite strongly with Luis Guilherme, but I'd be amazed if they touch the release clause. It's about 48 million for an 18-year-old straight out of Brazil. I don't think that's in Liverpool's kind of picture, but they might keep an eye on where he goes in the future. So he's certainly two players, young, very, very young players, but two players who are really, really worth keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, absolutely, James. Well, we will do. Like we've said, they give chances to young players. They're not scared to do that. And it seems a little bit of a flavour of the month or whatever for European sides to cherry pick these young players, and put them, and have a go at them and put them into their squads in the elite European leagues. So it's great to see these young lads, get a chance. And why would you want to go? So quickly? I know, money and all that might suggest otherwise and might govern it, but you want to play football, don't you? And they're willing to give you a chance. Why wouldn't you stick around for a little bit at least and make your name, score the goals, whatever you're doing, and start for Brazil? Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to do as a Brazilian player, surely. And with the manager now in there, he gives chances to like we said on previous pods, he will give the chance to players more often than maybe some that have come before him, to players that are playing in Brazil. So why would you not stick about and give yourself an option to play? Look at Endrick. You've got to look at Endrick and say, hey, I want to do that. He's 17.
Well, coming from the same academy, I'm sure he's been an inspiration to them. And he's younger than Luis Guilherme, Endrick. So, but we'll see whether they do. They might do. I know there's interest there, and Chelsea are a team who just seem willing to pay these release clauses. But anyway, we'll move on. So that's Palmeiras, and I still think that they may be the favourites. But George, you're going to come up with a club now and tell us why they might not be.
Yeah, I mean, it's Flamengo, isn't it, we're looking at now? So, yeah, look, obviously Flamengo for me, I think they're the favourites. Like I said to you, I think yesterday, James, I think Flamengo are the favourites. And, you know, I'll sort of delve in a little bit why I feel like this in sort of this section. So if we have a look at the manager, and for me, the manager is a big part of it as well. Obviously, Flamengo haven't won since 2020. They'll be chomping at the bit to try and you know and get a first Serie A for 4 years as well. So yeah, the manager. I mean, we know him on the pod, don't we? I mean, I made a little bit of a mess of his name when I said it before. I'll try to call him right this time. Tite, 62-year-old Brazilian. Obviously, if we know Brazilian football, we don't need to introduce this man really, but we'll do it anyway. So he's had a long career as manager, had a good career as a player as well. But his managerial career spans over 30 years. His first managerial position was in 1990, and he's managed 11 different clubs in Brazil, only 2 outside of Brazil, and I think they were both in the Middle East. One in the United Arab Emirates, anyway, that is for sure. 6.5-year spell as the Brazilian national coach, and he delivered Brazil's first trophy in 6 years when he won the Copa America in 2019. It was in Brazil as well to boot. So look, I don't know for sure, James, but I think Tite is pretty celebrated amongst Brazilian football fans for the recent times. He's, you know, the national team hasn't been in a good place, has it really, for a little while. Maybe he delivered some sort of happier moments for them. He's been at Flamengo since October 2023, so only since last year. He came obviously mid-season, really. They finished 4th. I don't think they really had a very good season. Probably if you speak to Flamengo fans, they won't be happy with 4th, but they have been up and around the top 4 for the last 4 years. Obviously, like I said, not won it since 2020. So he's a fantastic manager, lots of experience. And this is probably as well, like I said previously as well, James, one of the reasons why I personally picked them for starters as my kind of team. I do like the squad. Tite is a well-recognised coach as well. But if we have a look at the transfers, they haven't been as prolific in the transfer market from what I could have seen. Like you said, it's a little bit difficult, James, to work out the transfers, isn't it, really?
It is.
But, but from what I have gleaned from it, basically, is they've signed 3 players so far this season. 2 Uruguayans, actually, and a Brazilian. So if we look at firstly, Nicolas de la Cruz is a 26-year-old defensive midfielder, Uruguayan international from River Plate. They bought him for 12 million, so it's quite a lot of money, I feel, for a Brazilian side to pay. It doesn't seem like the sides, do actually spend that much money, but this seems like quite a big signing actually for Flamengo here. So he's played at River Plate since 2017, so he's been there for quite some time. And you'll like this, James, as well. He started his career at Liverpool FC. It's a Uruguayan side, so you might like that. Obviously, he's in the Uruguayan team playing with your man, of course, Nunes, and he laid one on a plate for him in the last Uruguayan win against Bolivia. 3-0, wasn't it? I think I mean, you know him, don't you? You know this man, don't you? Nicolas de la Cruz. I feel like he's probably the most important signing they've made. Darwin Nunes obviously laid on play for Bielsa, of course, which is of interest to me as well. The other Uruguayan, a man that again you'll know, James, I think, Mateus Vinha he's playing for Roma. He played last season at Bournemouth. This time last season, he was putting the nail in the coffin for our Premier League status. He played in a 4-1 win for Bournemouth against Leeds, sort of April time last year. Obviously, left back again. Both of De La Cruz and Viña are in the current Uruguayan team. They actually play tonight, James, as of recording, against Ivory Coast. Oddly enough, of course, it's in Paris. Of course, it is. Why? Where else would they play a game between Ivory Coast and Uruguay? Absolutely madness. So, any Leeds fans, get yourself off to Paris. Maybe a bit late now, but no, it's not in Paris. So it's in Lens. It's in Lens, not Paris. But yeah, any Leeds fans going. There might be. Yeah, get your flags out and go and see Bielsa, because he'll be there tonight against the Ivory Coast. But yeah, he was on loan at Sassuolo, actually. This early part of this season was Viña. But obviously now he's made the switch to Flamengo. 7 million. So again, they're splashing out a little bit of money. They've spent 25 million on 3 players so far in the summertime, in the transfer window. So the final player that I can see they've signed is a man called Leo Ortiz, who's a centre-back, 28-year-old Brazilian player from Bragantino. They spent 6 million on him. He was actually called up to the Brazilian squad in 2021. He didn't receive a cap, but I think he's quite well thought of there. He was the first Bragantino player to be called up since 1994, and the first player to be called up in the Red Bull era for Bragantino. He was there for 5 years, and then he moved to Flamengo. So, 25 million spent. So it's quite a hefty amount of money to pay for these 3 players, I think. They have put a lot of players out, though, as well. Everton Ribeiro is probably the pick of them. Former Brazilian international right winger. He's gone to Bahia. He's nearly 400 appearances, James, for Flamengo over the 6.5-year stint there. So he was quite a player for them. Moved on now, 34-year-old. Just quickly run through a few more. Adebar Santos, 34-year-old Brazilian goalkeeper, gone to Fortaleza. Gabriel Noga, 22-year-old Brazilian centre-back, gone to Lexios in Portugal for a fee of 1.3 million. Patterson, 20-year-old Brazilian, he's gone to Paranense on loan. A man named Pablo, 32-year-old Brazilian centre-back, he's gone on loan to Botafogo. And then there's Thiago Meia, 27-year-old Brazilian centre midfielder, and he's gone to Internacional. And then the final one gone to your team, James, actually, so maybe a man to keep an eye on for you. Metuzunio, 23-year-old Brazilian right back. He's gone for a fee of 3.4 million to Corinthians. So they've netted about £5 million on about 7 players gone out, what I could see. They've been a bit busy. They've been sort of busy more with the outgoings, to be fair. Now, again, like a lot of them, they look at youth, don't they, in terms of youth players. And I've picked out a couple of players to watch as the season progresses. One is a 17-year-old attacking player named Loran Lucas Pereira de Sousa. Very well thought of. I think already played 4 times for Flamengo, and he's capped 8 times by the Brazilian under-17 side. So, maybe one to watch out for, James. But one that maybe as well people should look out for is the man named Victor Hugo Gomes Silva. Victor Hugo, 19-year-old Brazilian forward player. Again, already at 19-year-old, James played 51 games in Serie A for Flamengo and 90 games in all competitions for the club. 6 goals already. So, look, he's 19, he's not even 20, and he's nearly played 100 times. So, I know this guy is very well thought of. It's a guy you know as well, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, good talent. Yeah, good talent, Victor Hugo. He's not particularly prolific, but he's, like you say, getting the games under his belt. Flamengo have a couple there that, just like Palmeiras, they've had names that have come through and gone on to be real successes. So they are really worth keeping an eye on. I know Loran is the one, isn't he? That's that seems
Yeah,
to be kind of the absolutely massive name potentially coming off the conveyor belt. But yeah, Victor Hugo is certainly a good player to look out for. And I picked out Wesley as well. The right
yeah,
back, he's been linked with Brighton and I think a couple of other European sides already. I think he's 19 or 18, maybe 18, 19, 20, like a right back. So
yeah.
another one to keep a close eye on. Have you managed to pick out a key player as well out of all those, George? Is it one of the youngsters you've gone for? Or?
No, it's not, James. I mean, key player. I like this lad ever since. Well, my team were linked with him last January, I think. Brazilian international man, Pedro, striker. The record is unbelievable. To be fair, James, I think you can cut it down the middle. I think he's played 230 games for Flamengo since coming to them from Fiorentina, I think in January of 2020. So this is his fifth season, is it now? Fourth season?
Fifth, yeah.
Fifth season, going into his fifth season, 230 appearances. Guess how many goals he scored in that?
Well, you give it away a bit there. Split down the middle. You're testing my math skills. 140, something like that.
He scored 114.
140.
So
Oh, sorry. Did you say 235 appearances?
Yeah, 230. So
230,
he's nearly got halfway.
Yeah.
If he scored one more goal, it'll be like 230 appearances, 115 goals, but he's just one short of that. But it's an incredible record. And for me at this level, he's getting on a little bit, and he has been linked, like I said, with moves in the past. I, would kind of like to see him move to a European side again. He didn't play much for Fiorentina, I don't think, and just see how he would get on. But he's absolutely on fire. I mean, there are a couple that we need to mention as well. Obviously, Gabigol, isn't it? Barbosa has just been banned, hasn't he, from football for 2 years. Look, he was quite a one that the fans liked. I think. I don't think he scored that many goals, really. Actually, but I think he definitely hasn't got the better record than Pedro. But I think the two of them together, Brazilian international as well, Barbosa, but looks like he was cheating, James. So,
Well, we don't condone that.
Absolutely not.
There's a number of kind of players who are also in the national team from Brazil. Playing domestically and in the national team. But why do you think they can beat Palmeiras then? Why do you think they can topple them after 2 years of dominance?
Well, as well, they've got players like James Gerson, who's been at Flamengo for some time, and with a little break in between at Marseille. Also for Fabrizio Bruno, who has been linked with moves away as well. But going back to your question, I just think they've got the experienced manager of Tite. They've got an experienced and well-versed squad, lots of quality in there, and seasoned professional quality mixed with the likes of Loran and Victor Hugo, exciting youth players. I just think they've got the mix right of just good quality seasoned professionals with exciting young players. Mix it in with Tite as a coach who's experienced, won titles and everything. I just think they're going to win it. I think it's long overdue a Flamengo win for me, and I think it's coming this time. I think they're going to win it. Yeah, I do think they will.
Okay, well, that's a compelling case, and any listeners, watchers, let us know who do you think? I mean, we're not saying that they're the only two who are going to be challenging, because we're going to look at two more now, but we think that they're going to be the two that are probably the two teams to beat.
I would have said so. Yeah.
If you come above them, then you're probably going to win the league. So they're the two kind of ones that we're kind of tipping a little bit. But moving swiftly on, let's look at the next challenger, who I'm going to just kind of cover for a little bit. It's a team whose colours I'm proudly donning this evening, and that's Gremio. So Gremio were second last season, and that was probably a surprise to a few people, I think, because they were actually promoted the year before. So that they're a big club. We've covered them, in the Porto Alegre edition, but they were down in 2021. They got 2021 they got relegated. So 2022 they played in Serie B. 2023 they were back up, and then they came second last year. So it was a bit of a funny year, really. Botafogo almost ran away with it, and then the other teams kind of clambered back in. And Gremio were right up there as well, and only just missed out in the end. So a lot of that, I think, was down to the manager, and that's a chap called Renato Gaucho, who is a very experienced manager, 61 years old, a bit like Tite in some respects. He is a very well-known figure in Brazil. He's a cult hero. He was involved in a really famous game, I think, in the Rio de Janeiro regional championship. The Carioca, I think he had a really famous goal in the final. But aside from that, he was a big player, 40-odd caps for Brazil, and he's been a manager for a long, long time. He's actually in his fourth spell at Gremio, which is at the fourth spell since 2010. He was a Gremio player as well. He won the Copa Libertadores as a player. He also won it with Gremio as a manager in 2017, I think it was. So he's done well as a manager. He's won 2 Copa do Brasils. He won one with Flamengo. He won one with Gremio. Like I say, he won the Copa Libertadores. He won the Recopa Sudamericana, and he has won 4 Gauchos as well, the regional championship. So he's a real kind of figure who pulls the club together, I feel. He's a manager who's been there, done it all as a player, as a manager, someone who's taken them from the second division. He's been there since September 2022. So he took them up, and then he took them up, and then he consolidated last season with a pretty amazing season. So I think he's going to be a big part of the reason if they are able to challenge and go close again. But in terms of transfers coming in, they have had a couple of decent looking ones as well. Christian Pavon, who has come from one of the other teams we're looking at, from Gallo. Last season, he spent his whole career in South America and a bit in LA, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So experienced Argentina international, 28 now, so he's kind of in his prime. Should be a threat for them. Another one who, they've made a couple of signings. I'll just go through the key ones. So the goalkeeper they've signed, Agustin Marquesin, is a really good signing, I think. He's a free transfer from Celta Vigo. I remember he was at Porto a few years ago when Liverpool was smashing 4 to 5 past him, but that had nothing to do with the goalkeeper, really. He's another Argentina international, 36-year-old, and he's come in as the number 1, so very experienced head in between the sticks. Another interesting player is Jefferson Soteldo, who was at Santos for a number of years, and obviously they went down. And he's come in on loan, a Venezuela winger with a decent reputation as well. But I think the one that's a really key player, who is actually my key player for Gremio, who is a new signing as well, is Diego Costa. So Diego Costa is, a divisive kind of figure, really, in any football debate, I think. He's won the lot. He's been brilliant at times for whoever he's played for. He's also been, a nuisance, a troublemaker, and a kind of a thuggish type character, really, Diego Costa. But the reason why, he's coming on a free transfer from Botafogo. He was at Botafogo last season. He came in just out for he came in during the summer, so our summer window. So he was there for half the year, basically. Didn't play too many, couldn't help them turn around their kind of slide. But the reason he's the key player is because one of the reasons Gremio were so good last year, I think, is because of the manager. The second reason, and probably the bigger reason, and being a Liverpool fan, I know this very well, is just one man, Luis Suarez. Luis Suarez was there last year at Gremio. He was the top scorer in the league for them. He was the top assister in the league for them. He was basically the man who was driving them to the league title, much like he did for Liverpool in 2013-14. And in that same year, 10 years later, Gremio also ended up coming second. He can't do it all himself, but he can have a good go, Luis Suarez. But he's gone, obviously, to Inter Miami, as we know, with Messi. So somebody's going to have to come in and replace him, and that's going to have to be Diego Costa, really. The goals aren't really coming from anywhere else. I think Pavon will help a little bit. But it's going to have to be Costa, really. 28 goals and assists in Serie A. The closest to that was Franco Cristaldo, I think, had 13, so not even half the same contributions. So Cristaldo will be important again. Matthias Villasanti, who's a Paraguayan midfielder, will also be in there. And João Pedro, who's a player I liked from his days in Serie A with Cagliari, hasn't really kicked on at Gremio, but he's got quality and he can be one to watch. But the key man without question is going to be Diego Costa.
Yeah, like you said, Costa, Jacqueline Hyde kind of character, isn't he, James? Really, one that he can be amazing, score loads of goals. Next minute, he can grab somebody by the throat and get sent off. He's just that kind of character, isn't he? But he went to Wolves, didn't it? Didn't really work out. Obviously, now found himself, back in Brazil. Obviously, he's Brazilian born, isn't he? But Spanish international at one stage. Very, very, season pro at scoring goals. Basically, will be important for Gremio. I like Gremio. I hope they have a good. I hope they have a good season, really. And like I said, sprinkle a little bit of quality in there. The manager, as he is, done really well, and obviously fan favourite, nation favourite by the sound of it. So, hopefully they can go on and have another good season. But it probably was quite surprising, wasn't it, that they finished second? Having just come up is amazing, to be fair.
Yeah, it feels like it was a lot on the back of Suarez, to be honest. He still got it. I mean, at that level as well, he was a bit of a cheat code, I think, for them at some points. But decent team regardless. And like you say, a good club, found the footing again. They do have a couple of not so little, but young players to watch as well. Not as many as the big clubs, Flamengo, Palmeiras, but Gremio have a decent academy in themselves. Obviously, Ronaldinho, who I don't think did he come through. We've had this debate a few times. I think he might have joined us, but irrelevant. They have.
I think he did. I think he did come through.
Well, either way, they've got a record of having a few players. One to watch for me is a left back, actually, which isn't usually a place you'd go for a one to watch. But being a former left back myself, I'm going to keep a close eye on a chap called Cuiabano, who you might know, if listeners of last week's podcast might be aware of where he is from. It isn't his real name, Cuiabano. He is actually from Cuiabá. That's where he is from. So, in kind of the tradition of giving them names that kind of relate to things rather than giving them the birth names, which can be a bit kind of long and a little bit generic in some ways. Cuiabano, so he's had interest from Torino already in Europe. He's not particularly well used to playing for Gremio, but I think he will be this season a little bit more involved. So, yeah, I want to keep an eye on. I don't know. Torino were very heavily linked with him. I don't know why it didn't happen in the end, but it didn't happen in the end, and he's still there. Another one, Gustavo Gomez, has come through in the Gaucho. He looks like he's going to be a good player, 18-year-old, so already featuring for the senior side. And also a youngster called Nathan Ribeiro, who's a right winger, 19-year-old, already got a goal or two, and one who very much can break through this year. A reason why they can win it, I mean, in short, I don't think they can. I don't see them how they can go better than last year without Suarez. I just don't think they can. I think Costa will have an impact, just as he did at Gallo when he was at Gallo for the year and they won the title with him and Hulk up front. He had an impact that year. He almost did it again with Botafogo, but it never really happened. And I feel like he's probably 2 or 3 years past the point of really making a difference. But anyway, it'd be a first win since 1996. It's going to be a long shot. But if everything comes together, Costa hits the ground running. The other guys I mentioned, Villasanti and Cristaldo and Pavon, gather around, rally around, and Gaucho can get them going. They might have a little bit of a chance, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, like you said, let's wait and see. I mean, like you said, coming back off of a relegation, then coming back, having a fantastic season. Maybe it's just that momentum, sprinkling a little bit of quality and that we know how from Costa. Like you said, Suarez, no matter how old he is, I mean, he'll go and score goals again with Inter Miami with Messi there as well. He just scores goals, doesn't he? Particularly at that level. I mean, yes, he probably couldn't do it at the Premier League, obviously, still. But at that level, it's like you said, it is a bit a cheat code. And Diego Costa will have to take up that mantle. And you feel like he has to have a good season if they're going to come anywhere near what they did last season and try and break him to actually winning it. He is definitely, like you said, James. He's definitely the key figure if they're going to have anywhere near a season like they did last time.
He is, yeah. I mean, Suarez, best player I've seen at Liverpool, hands down. Just reeks of quality, unbelievable, relentless. But anyway, he's gone, so we don't get to watch Luis Suarez this season. But anyway, moving on again. It is a shame, actually. But yeah, moving on. So we've covered the 3 teams there. I think we all know who we're kind of backing so far. Not that we're going to make a prediction outright just yet, because we do have more teams to look at next week. But the final one we're going to look at this time is Georgia club, very close to your heart for the last 7 or 8 days. Do you want to tell everybody about Atletico Mineiro?
Yes, it's Atletico Mineiro, obviously last team out the 4 we're looking at today, James. Obviously Gallo, their nickname, and obviously, like you said, it is my chosen team that I'm going to follow. Contrary to, like you said, the viewers watching me in a Flamengo shirt, but there you go. But Gallo, obviously winners of the Serie A in 2021. They have gone, down since then. Finished 7th in 2022, and then 3rd in last season. A bit of a shock as well, obviously coming last week, but unbeknownst to us until. Well, certainly to me until yesterday. It's again, like you said, sometimes hard to keep up with the news. But obviously, our friend and sort of honorary member, like you said, of the pod, it seems to be mentioned him every single week. Unfortunately, we won't be mentioning him at all, really, probably going on in the season. It is Luis Felipe Scolari, who came to an agreement last Wednesday, the 20th of March, to come to an agreement to cancel his contract as the Gallo manager. And then I was doing a little bit of research. I couldn't find who was become the manager. And then I had a look again this morning, and they have appointed the manager on Sunday. The Argentine Gabriel Milito, who's a former Argentina international, a former Barcelona player as well, played for Real Zaragoza in Spain as well. He has come into the club, 43-year-old, appointed on Sunday, the new manager. Let's see how he does. He's already, James, nine years experience at just 43-year-old. 9 years managerial experience, most of it in his native country. His last job at Argentinos Juniors left in September of last year. But a little spell in Chile as well. But mostly in Argentina, his career so far. Big move this for him, and it's great to see them taking a bit of a chance on a young manager who's obviously had his experience. But it's good to see. He was in the 2006 World Cup squad in Germany for Argentina. Only played 1 game, obviously in that fantastic Barcelona team. Didn't really punch into that at all. 70 appearances over I think he was there for five years or so. But like we said, Puyol, Piqué, Mascherano, in that era of teams, you're not really going to get much game time. Won the Champions League twice, but I don't think he was in the squad either time. They beat Man United both times. Wasn't in the squad at all, I don't think so. But still a Champions League winner. Let's see how he gets on. Gallo themselves haven't really done much transfer business at all, James. The only one that I can find is a man named Brahim Palacios. I don't think he's any relation to Wilson, of course. 21-year-old Colombian right winger. And again, 2.3 million from Colombian side Atletico Nacional. He's already played 4 times for them this season. I'm not sure of the Colombian league and the timings of the season, to be fair. But 2 appearances as well in the Copa Libertadores already this season. So he's got a little bit of, I think Gallo, are they competing in that this season?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit of experience with him in there. Um, Transfers out. If we just have a quick look at what has gone out from Garlo this summer or this window. Paulo Henrique, who's a 27-year-old Brazilian right back, he's gone to Vasco da Gama. Hayoran is a 30-year-old Brazilian midfielder. He's gone to Internacional on a free transfer. Esha Pora, who's a 24-year-old Brazilian left winger, he's gone to Remo, who I think are a lower league Brazilian side. And then Jan Felipe, 1.2 million, he's gone to San Luis, who I couldn't find much information out on them, to be fair. Obviously, like you said, there's your man Pavon, who's a World Cup winner, isn't he, for Argentina? Was he not in this? I think he was in the squad.
He wasn't. No, he was in 2018. He wasn't. He wasn't in 2022.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, 2018. Yeah, so he got to the final, was it?
No, 2018. I can't remember what Argentina did in 2018. They didn't get to the final. The final was France-Croatia. They were out in. I think France beat them in the quarters or something like that. Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't in the 2022 squad.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, I got my facts mixed up there. But he's gone, of course, to Gremio from Garlo. So we'll see how he gets on. They've netted nearly 6 million from those transfers, so it's not too bad. The key player, well, we'll do one to watch actually first. Is a man named young lad again, teenage lad, Alisson Santana. I read reports that Arsenal are interested again. Like we covered before, a hefty sort of fee going, about 50 odd million pounds for this lad. He's a striker. He's already played a couple of games in the Mineiro this season so far. So one to watch, definitely. Not much experience first team as of yet, but there are reports. Like I said, I think Newcastle as well. So maybe he likes the black and white. Maybe he wants to go play for Newcastle. Who knows? Alisson Santana, though, James, definitely one to keep an eye on. And then you go with a key player. I mean, there's no other one but the man Hulk. He's been there. I think he's coming into his 5th year at Garlo now, James, and he's 37. He just doesn't seem to get any older. I know he does, but he just doesn't. He just seems to go on and on and on. It's incredible. Obviously, former Porto player, played a lot in Japan as well. Seemed to have a bit of a love affair with Japanese football over his years. I think 3 clubs in Japan he played for over his career, but 100 goals. James, in 181 games for Garlo since joining them in January of 2021. So yeah, incredible. And if they're going to have like Costa for them, although I believe he's a better player than Costa at this level, if they're going to have anything near the season like they did last time, finishing 3rd, he's going to be a massive part of that again. They've also got Scrapper. Or is it Scapper? I think Scrapper or Scapper. Yeah, who had a brief spell at Forest. He's getting on a bit now, but he's also at Garlo as well. So he might have a little say in in where they finish this season as well. So, but like we've done, reasons why they can win it. Again, like you with Gremio, I don't think Garlo can win it at all, particularly given the late managerial change. Militao might be a good manager, but he's not Philippe Scolari, is he? And Scolari, they finished 7th in 2022, and then Scolari came in I think June, July time, so sort of mid-season-ish, and he managed to get them to finish 3rd. It's not the best squad. For me, there's no real standouts. There's Pauline here, isn't there?
Pauline, yeah.
Yeah, who was on loan from Bayer Leverkusen. I think he's made his move permanent, hasn't he? He scores goals as well, so he's going to be important to them as well. But I just, like you said, I don't think they really are going to have this late managerial change. It doesn't seem to me like. I mean, I think maybe it was something to do with they did change the director of football about a month ago as well. I think a chap named Victor, who like you, really, as you know. But I suppose, unlike you, you didn't play in goal for Garlo. I suppose he did, and he was the managing director. He'd been appointed as managing director sometime last month, I think. And I think maybe I don't know. Did that have something to do with Scolari? Maybe he wasn't happy with how things had gone or the backroom changes. I don't know, but it doesn't seem ideal. Like you said, 3 weeks or so before a season starts to change the manager like that when he'd done so well. Yeah, he hadn't been there for that long, but he'd done a good job in a short space of time. And maybe Garlo punching above their weight, really. I mean, they absolutely destroyed Flamengo, actually, when they won it, didn't they? I think they won it by about 12 points or something like that. So I just don't see a way they can really do it. But again, they'll be up there. They'll be up there because they're up with the better teams of this league, really, aren't they? I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, it's all on the manager. You just don't know really with a new manager like that, a young manager coming in. He might be a great manager. He might not, but he doesn't have an amazing squad to work with. It's interesting you say that Holt's a better player than Costa at this level. I'm not sure. I mean, they played together that year that they won the league, and I don't know who scored more goals. I imagine it might have been Holt, to be honest. But I think over time, if you look at the pair's career side by side, Costa's had a far better career in terms of making it in Europe. He's been better. He's been a top sides, whereas Hulk was best known really because he was called Hulk. I mean, if he wasn't called Hulk, he wouldn't have really made that much of an impact. He used to batter in the odd goal for Porto, and he was incredible on his day, but he was never there's a reason he never had the move that he perhaps was tutored to have. He went to Zenit, didn't he, and did well, but he never made his mark in one of the really, really top leagues. So, I mean, maybe he's had more longevity than Costa, and you'd back him perhaps to get more goals just because he's on more of a roll. But if Costa really sparks, then I think Costa can make it happen more for Gremio than Hulk can for Gallo, perhaps. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I think they both will be up there. The managerial change might have just kicked Gallo in the proverbial groin, really. But we'll wait and see how they react. You just don't know at this point. The market, I think, still is open for domestic transfers. But, there's only so much they can do. I think they're not going to add too much quality now. So I think it might be a season of, again, kind of managing and trying to go for the Copa Libertadores qualification and go for the Copa Libertadores. Look at Fluminense this year. You don't have to be doing amazingly well in the Serie A to go for the Libertadores. Fluminense won it for the first time, and I think they finished 7th or 8th or something in the end. So maybe that'll be a realistic ambition for them. And Milito's managed at that level before for Argentinos Juniors. So we'll just have to see how he hits the ground running. But anyway, that kind of concludes the 4 there. I think we've both kind of nailed our colours to the mast in terms of those 4 who we think will be the more likely challengers. I think it will be between Flamengo and Palmeiras, but we think that the other 2 will be in to some degree. So final thoughts, George, on those 4 teams, and what do you think we can expect next week? Who are we looking at next week?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, Palmeiras going for a hat-trick. They'll certainly put up a good fight. Like you said, James, I do think it will be between them and Flamengo definitely this time. There might be an odd one that comes out of nowhere and surprise everybody, like Gremio did last season. But definitely Gremio and Galo will be up and around it. But I do expect them to be the 2 of them lads, 2 of them teams going hammer and tong basically between them, hammering it out. And you said just quickly about Hulk and Costa. Yeah. Costa actually got the most goals in that season 2021 when they won it. Well, 19. Hulk got 15, 34 between them. What a strike partnership between the whole season. But there you go. Like you said, maybe I was just stuck on the name that he was called Hulk, but I do like him as a player. But yeah, and to be honest with you, James, I've forgotten at this moment who we're looking at next week. Is it Corinthians, Botafogo? You tell the listeners.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we actually did nail it down, but like you say, a club might come from nowhere, and it does seem to happen that a team can just emerge and put up a late. Look at Botafogo last season; they should have won it. They were miles clear at one stage, so there probably will be a team that we don't mention. But I think we'll probably look at Botafogo. I think we'll look at my club, Corinthians, because I think they had a poor season, but I think they'll be back up amongst it. They didn't win it not too long ago, so I think they'll be back up. And maybe Fluminense and maybe Sao Paulo, but we'll just finalise that next week and then just decide between us who we think might be the next 4 challengers. But anyway, so that's our initial season preview, the 4 challenges, initial title challenges. Let us know what you guys think. If you think we're completely wrong, we probably are. And somebody else is going to be the favourite for the Brasileirão this year. But for now, unless you have anything else to add, George, to wrap up the episode, we'll call it a day.
No, I don't think I do, James. Like I said, like you said, we'll probably nail down in a week which ones we're kind of look at. Next will be kind of like the outside chances, maybe, and then then we're on then we're kind of on the home run towards the season starting. So. Yeah, so that's what. Yeah, I mean, and thanks again to anybody listening, who anybody's listened, and keep listening, sharing it if you want to, or whatever, wherever you're listening from it. Yeah, it's appreciated. Let's hope we can grow this situation into something quite substantial. Who knows?
That's it. Yep. So thank you again, guys. Like George says, let us know where you're listening from. We always like to see who's listening from where, and as we try and grow the channel and try and learn more ourselves and become more experts about things. So yeah, again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll look forward to the season starting in a few weeks, and we'll catch you next week. Adios.
Yeah, what do we say? I was just going to say, James, what do we say? And it's adios, isn't it? And adios. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope everybody's enjoying it. And let's see how those teams get on in the 2024 Serie A season.
We certainly will. Bye, everybody.
Adios. Bye-bye.